Good morning. How are you today? Well, it's cold and overcast, but it is the first day of the impeachment proceeding. The first time there'll be really a public portion of it. And I have a beef with both Republicans and Democrats, different sort. Republicans, first of all, how can you possibly vote for acquittal as a senator? And this is only the Republicans, I expect, without confirming that autocracy, insurrection, and incitement to riot are acceptable. I don't see how you can justify that kind of a vote. So any senator who casts a ballot to save Trump makes a statement that goes beyond partisan politics. And there is a place for that kind of politics in any legislative body, I suppose. But not when it goes to the very foundation of our definition of what our government is, a democracy, increasingly trying to perfect the access to vote so that our representative government does in fact represent we the people, which are the opening lines of our Constitution. So those senators who argue against what the facts and the law scream are endorsing the incitement to riot by a president, making it a precedent for future chief executives in our so-called democracy. I can't understand why anybody wants to rush this through. I can't say it's as important as the safety of people in the pandemic, but I can say the ability of the government to deal with that or any other issue, however difficult or troubling, will be compromised if our elected representatives are not truly representational, and that our government endorses and accepts the notion of a dictatorship, of an autocracy, of a whatever you can get away with when it comes to an election theory of government. So why am I upset with the Democrats? I'm upset because the feeling I get, which I think corresponds to the reality, and I'm not talking about the House managers, I'm thinking it may be people in the higher pay grade in the Democratic caucus, party, government, influence makers, that we got to get this out of the way. That's wrong. This is important. And this will haunt us if we handle it badly. Because if we don't convict him, we have to at least make the argument well. And we have to do things to stem the tide of disinformation that comes so freely these days from the Republicans. And is teaching politics to the rest of the world and to our nation that this is going to be acceptable in the future, and it's not. And in this disinformation campaign, we have legal arguments that are bupkis, nonsense. And we're going to spend today 4 hours on the question whether or not a president impeached while in office can be tried afterwards, when we have precedents that say we can do precisely that, and that the penalty of barring a person from running for public office again implicitly tells us that it's expected that a person can't just do something terrible and run from office and get away with it so that we have no handle on preventing them from doing more. So what do I think should have happened? I'm always upset with people who comment but don't have any solutions. My solution is there are extensive papers they submitted, say, on the question of whether or not you could prosecute a president after he left office if he was impeached while in office. Well, do it on the papers. That is to say, we have pages from both sides. Put it to a vote, and I think it'll be voted down. Rather than have 4 hours of false law intermingled with misleading statements of facts and stories about what Trump believed rather than his objective criminal And it was criminal intent, not just high crimes and misdemeanors. We're talking about prosecutable cases. So why shouldn't we have instead 4 hours of real witnesses? And are we going to have any witnesses? When the Republicans were in charge, we said, how can you have a trial without witnesses? Well, how can you have this trial without witnesses when the Democrats are kind of in control? That is to say, the margin is so sharp. And it doesn't have to be a lot of witnesses. There are key witnesses. And that presentation, it seems to me, is critical. The nation has to be told how close it came to having perhaps even the destruction of the government or the killing of some of our leaders. It could have been Vice President Pence. It could have been the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. It could be some congresswoman, AOC perhaps, because she engendered such hate for her exercises of policy that are so strongly disagreed with by the Republicans. In any case, I think that the Republicans are going to be a sorry tale in history should they do what everybody expects. But we, the Democrats, have to tell the story, because this story will be the story for the midterm elections. It may give us presage, I think is a good word, may presage the end of the Republican Party, certainly as we know it. And that would be a good thing if the Republican Party can only embrace autocracy. It will make no effort to appeal to citizens across the nation and stop this notion of suppressing the vote based on your religion or your color or your geography or your socioeconomic status. So I may talk about what happened on the floor of the Senate today on Ari Melber, but even if I don't, the message should be clear that we need more from the Democrats, more guts, more push, more fight. Don't back down and act gingerly, because they're not. Trump is talking to key senators to mold this message to the public, to create more disinformation, to compromise indirectly now so that they can directly in the future compromise our democracy. And we cannot let that stand. So that's what I'm thinking today. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.